Welcome back to Exhibit A List, where pop culture gets cross-examined. It's the show where we take the stories everyone is talking about and actually break down what is happening legally, not just what the blogs are saying. I'm Jasmine Weg, attorney, managing member of Weg Law PLLC, but most importantly, your lawyer bestie. Subscribe wherever you listen: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Follow, rate, review, and follow me on TikTok and Instagram. Now, today we have a big episode, so big that I had to drop this midweek because it could not wait. This is breaking legal news. Let's dive in because it's super juicy. Okay, big headlines this week. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni settle. And everyone's talking about it, but there's a lot you guys are missing. You know your girl is here to break it down because I have been reporting on this story since the very beginning. And I always had a kind of hot take on it because I always thought that Lively would prevail, and nobody did. Everybody's been Team Baldoni since the get-go, but listen, when I break this down for you, you're going to see a new side to it, and there's nuance, babies. Okay, so buckle in. I'm not going to go and give you the background on this case because hello, goodbye. If you have been anywhere on the internet, if you listen to this podcast, if this is not your first time hearing about this saga, you know the background. We all know what happened. We even know the judge's name. Judge Lyman is a household name at this point. Anyway, here's where we're at. Big news was that the parties settled this week, and the headlines say that there has been no money exchanged, meaning no money changed hands as far as we know. So it sounds like there was no big win, right? Well, let's figure this out. Okay, so trial was supposed to happen May 18th. There was going to be a jury. 2 weeks before trial, May 4th, the parties file a notice of settlement. Trial is off. Now, this is the part that everyone is sleeping on, so that's why I'm here. The stipulation that was filed with the court this week has an interesting wrinkle. So listen, under the stipulation, all parties waive their right to appeal and any orders in this case. This is standard settlement stuff, but the stipulation specifically carves out one thing. It states explicitly that Blake does not release her pending motion for attorney's fees, treble damages, which is triple damages, and punitive damages under California Civil Code Section 47.1. That motion is preserved, it's not withdrawn, and it remains before the court. So we need to talk about why this matters. The statute is known as the Protecting Survivors from Weaponized Defamation Lawsuits Act, passed in 2023, and it creates a special privilege for communications that are made in good faith about sexual harassment, assault, or discrimination. So if you complain about those things, you should be protected, the statute says, from retaliatory behavior. The purpose is to protect survivors who speak out from being sued into silence. If someone reports or speaks out about sexual harassment or retaliation in good faith, and then they get slammed with a lawsuit for defamation just because they did so, then Section 47.1 allows them to seek attorney's fees and get triple damages for the harm that was caused, and punitive damages, which are damages that are just punishment for the party who sued them. So Blake's team argued from the very beginning that Baldoni's $400 million defamation suit, which was dismissed by the judge, was the exact type of retaliatory weaponized lawsuit that this statute was designed to stop. The judge denied that motion previously on procedural grounds, but said that Blake could refile it, which she did, and that motion is still alive and pending. So now where we're at is they entered the stipulation. The stipulation says that there can be no appeals, and she still has this motion viable. So she can get this triple damages, which means she can still get millions from Baldoni and the Wayfarer defendants. And guess what? They can't file an appeal and try to appeal any decision. So if she's successful in this motion, that's a final decision. That is a huge win that people are missing. Blake's attorneys basically made a statement saying that this is an explicit win for them. They said that agreeing to this settlement and waiving their rights to appeal, that meant that Justin Baldoni and every individual defendant now face personal liability for abusing the legal system to silence and intimidate Blake Lively. Now, obviously, it's not in the bag that she's going to win this motion, but there's a huge chance. And they don't really have anything on their side if she wins because they can't appeal it. They have to take that. So Baldoni's side has been saying that this settlement was a huge win because she just walked away with no money. That's spin. She still stands to potentially get a lot of money out of this, and everyone doesn't know it. No one really sees it because no one read this stipulation that was filed with the court, but your girl did. So fear not. You know better. And now you can tell your friends at dinner and be that amazing guest. So who's right? We're going to find out really soon. And here's another interesting wrinkle to this whole case. So Jennifer Abel, the publicist and member of IEWU's directors team, and her former boss, Stephanie Jones of Joneswork PR firm, still have a case pending. So that case is still moving forward. It hasn't been settled. So the irony is that Blake and Justin might have to show up for depositions about all this stuff that happened in this "it ends with us" dispute, but in somebody else's case, because their case is settled, but Jennifer Abel's case is still active. So isn't that funny how you think it's over, but you might still be called into court because some other repercussions of this case are still active and happening? Guys, this case won't die. It just comes back from the dead. Now, I gotta go back to the JPMorgan case because it also just got crazier. Last episode, I gave you a full breakdown of the JPMorgan lawsuit, but today we have major updates. I want to go deeper into the actual documents because what is in that complaint and those sworn affirmations is serious. So by way of background, an individual sued an executive of JP Morgan alleging that a female executive had sexually harassed him, drugged him, there was toxic workplace behavior all happening at work. Now, this lawsuit was slammed a lot. Everyone slammed his credibility, said there was no teeth to the case. Well, he refiled his case this week. He refiled the complaint with sworn affidavits. In other words, bro brought receipts to the table. And we have a lot of news that came out about this case because it was just released in a New York Times article that the plaintiff, who we now know is Chirayu Rana, was actually offered $1 million by JP Morgan to not bring this case and just settle it quietly. And he said no. So JP Morgan offered him $1 million in March to settle his claims before he ever filed this lawsuit. They went through mediation. $1 million was on the table and he did not accept. His attorneys countered at $11 million, so the reports say, and JP Morgan did not accept that. So now we've got a public lawsuit and a viral case and the bank's name on the front page of every outlet in the country. JP Morgan has publicly and repeatedly said that they conducted a full investigation and found no merits to the claim. And they said that Rana did not cooperate with the investigation and they've maintained that nothing happened. But then they put $1 million on the table. Now, JP Morgan's spokesperson offered an explanation. They said that they tried to reach an agreement to avoid the time and expense of litigation and to support another employee being threatened with a very reputational harm that's now unfolding. So that sounds like a legal and PR rationale explanation. And it makes sense, but $1 million is not nothing. It's not nuisance value. Some of my clients will say we'll settle for nuisance value, and it's like we'll throw a tiny bit of money at this because it's not valid. The claims we reject, but it's not worth our time and energy in court. But to throw $1 million, maybe that's nothing to JP Morgan, but it's substantial enough to make you question what this plaintiff really has on them. Because you don't throw $1 million at a nuisance case. You fight it and defend your name, in my experience and in my opinion. Obviously, I don't know the truth and we will see, but that's my take. And then on the other hand, for him to turn down $1 million to get $1 million settlement without having to go to court, without having to do any discovery, without having to put his name and reputation out there, without him having to go through any embarrassment or public attention, he could get $1 million and walk away. He turned that down. The confidence of this man tells you that he must have some very strong documentary evidence that is supporting his claims, or he's completely delusional. Why would he take this all the way to court unless he had something that tells him he can get way more than $1 million from this case? My money is that he has a lot. And now, if we look at the actual documents that he filed an amended complaint this week with sworn witness affirmations, I'm seeing that evidence is already at the very beginning showing its face. So he filed a 46-page complaint in New York County Supreme Court with 10 causes of action. He said he joined the leveraged finance group in March 2024 as a senior VP and director. He was, according to the complaint, the only person of color on the team. Then, in April 2024, Lorna Hajdini joined the group as an executive director and became his supervisor. According to the complaint, the harassment began almost immediately. The allegations are graphic, and so I'm not going to read them on here, but I'll give you the substance because the pattern matters. The complaint alleges that unwanted touching started in May 2024, escalating to explicit verbal threats, conditioning his career on complying with her advances. The specific alleged language includes career threats tied directly to his refusal. The complaint alleges that she coerced him into sexual acts on multiple occasions at a third party's apartment she knew had no security cameras. The complaint also alleges that she told him that she had accessed his Chase Bank transactions, his medical records, his prescriptions, his location data from Citibike. Hello, stalker? Through JPMorgan's internal systems, not to do business, but to intimidate him, to let him know that she was watching. He says that he formally raised this with JPMorgan's chief privacy officer in July 2025 and that they refused to produce records in response. He alleges that she drugged him more than once. She allegedly admitted to spiking his drinks with a drug without his consent. The racial harassment alleged throughout is extensive and specific and comes not just from her, but from the entire team, including 2 managing directors that he named by name. There are alleged statements about keeping the team white and Catholic. A managing director allegedly responded to his question about seating at an offsite by saying that his seat was outside and saying a racial slur, and then other colleagues laughing. There's a documented internal instruction allegedly told senior staff to keep him buried in busy work using a racial slur to describe him. And now the witnesses. The witnesses say that he clearly did not look comfortable with her and that he did not reciprocate the advances that she made toward him. A witness says that she was asleep on a couch in a Manhattan apartment and was awakened in the middle of the night by a loud, clearly intoxicated woman arriving with Rana. And he asked her to be quiet. She refused loudly, and a short while later, the witness awakened again by the same woman who was completely naked, sitting on the couch, asking him to come to the bedroom and join them. He said no 3 times, and she said, and this is straight from the sworn affirmation, "I own him, so you better come join." He still said no. She went back to the bedroom. Through the closed door, he heard him loudly pleading with the woman to stop and to leave. And he heard Rana saying, "No, no, no, you have to leave. I'm not going to do this. Please stop." Then it became quiet, and then the woman came out. These are all allegations from this sworn affirmation, not me conjecturing or making up stuff. Then Rana has his own affirmation. He has a document from his own therapist saying that he was formally diagnosed with PTSD as a result of what happened. He submitted screenshots as exhibits of threatening text messages sent to his family members. The screenshots are in the public record. They are from a phone number that says, "Stop trying to help your brother. You won't win. Don't forget, we know where you both live." The complaint also documents that after he returned from medical leave and made his formal discrimination complaint, he received anonymous calls at his personal phone number using the same racial slurs used by his coworkers. The calls are documented with dates. JPMorgan allegedly placed him on involuntary administrative leave within days of his return, cut his system access, left Hajdini freely employed. He remains on that leave as of this filing date, as of the date this was filed. The complaint additionally alleges that after he tried to find a new job, JPMorgan personnel actively contacted more than a dozen private equity firms to give negative references, defame him, and in at least one case threatened to pull JPMorgan's business from a firm if they continued working with him. Partners at multiple named funds allegedly corroborated this directly to Rana in person and in writing. This story is wild. Hajdini obviously categorically denies all of this. JPMorgan says that it investigated, found no merit. Her lawyers say she was never even at the location where some of the alleged incidents took place. Right now, all I know are the allegations. I'm not speaking from my review of this case, at the end of all evidence. I'm not a judge. I'm saying what the allegations are. I could tell you my gut. My gut is that in this case, I believe this victim. Now, moving on, Kim Kardashian just dropped some sad news this week. She said she's reportedly decided to skip this round of the California bar exam. A source close to her told Page Six that she has a packed schedule with filming and production, and she felt it was best to focus on taking it when she feels ready. But I want you, Kim Kardashian, Kimberly Noel Kardashian, please keep trying. Become a lawyer for us, for the girlies. I don't care if you need to take a year off. I don't care if you take it 20 more times. I just want her to keep going. And here's why I feel so strongly about this. The haters are so loud on this one. And what I notice is that the loudest criticism is not about Kim. It's about the ego of professionals who have convinced themselves that being in a prestigious or presumably prestigious field like medicine, law, finance, academia, whatever field they choose, makes them better than other people. There is this persistent idea in professional culture that there's something virtuous and elevated about the work, and that is incompatible with being famous for your looks or being girly or feminine, a reality show, whatever your lifestyle is. But that's not actually about the work. The truth of the matter is that Kim has done real work in her to move the needle. She has worked with freeing people who were on death row. And the truth is that you can be girly and irreverent and publicly petty and also be passionate and serious about learning the law. Those things are not mutually exclusive. Kim has put in real study time. Something clear is that she obviously really wants this. She feels strongly about this. She passed the baby bar on her second attempt. She's been working under attorney supervision. She's doing the thing. And the day she passes and hangs even a small part of her time on actual legal work, like maybe it's a baby shingle, it's going to make a very specific group of people very angry. And I'm here for that. Not because she cheated or gamed any kind of system, but they're not going to like it because she is not what they view as who should be representing our field. And I'm sorry. This is the whole premise of Legally Blonde. This is the what like it's hard. This is the moment, the Elle Woods moment. That's the movie that's the reason that the movie hit, because Elle Woods' boyfriend and his Harvard classmates all thought they were better than her, specifically because she was pretty and blonde and dressed in pink. That threatened their sense of self, and she still won. And so I'm here for Kim doing this because of everyone who will be angry about it when she does. Keep going, because we don't all look the same, and that doesn't mean that we can't all succeed in this field just because we don't fit your cookie cutter white male version of a lawyer. Sorry, not sorry. And now, remember when we were talking about Taylor Frankie Paul's canceled season? Well, according to an insider of Bachelor Nation, Reality Steve, who has a track record for being right on these things, Taylor Frankie Paul's season, he says, will still air this summer. He says it's not getting dumped on a streamer. He says it's going to air on ABC, and he expects the official announcement at ABC's Upfront to come on May 12th, which is in a few days. So let me give you the full picture of how we got here. So obviously the TMZ video got her canceled. We all know that. But here's what I think happened. I think that when the video dropped, ABC was not sure how the public was going to land on this. Taylor had um, They were very careful. They used the word pause deliberately. They didn't say it was canceled. They left the window open, and then they effectively sat back and watched. What they did was they carved out a position for themselves where they looked like the good guy because they took their hands off and they wiped themselves clean from being associated with it, and did a wait and see method to try and see how is the public going to respond. And I think that the public did not respond how they expected, because the general feeling was not cancel Taylor, she's awful. It was, what else was going on? And what was Dakota's role? And in the time since her series getting, in the time since the Bachelorette season getting canceled, there was mutual restraining orders that were granted to both Taylor and Dakota, which means that Taylor was also granted a restraining order against Dakota, and we're finding out that Dakota was also an aggressor. So the picture is a lot different than initially presented by that video. She got a protective order against him, and I think that changed the public conversation. A co-star also from Mormon Wives filed a sworn statement saying that Dakota Mortensen had told her he specifically planned to leak embarrassing videos of Taylor to TMZ to humiliate her before the premiere. He allegedly named TMZ by name. And so now the picture shifted. This went from a woman with a violent past to a woman in an abusive relationship with a man who may have strategically tried to destroy her career. That context isn't exculpatory. It doesn't redeem her from everything she did, but it's context. And it matters for how the audience is going to receive the show. Because think about it. We watched the Jersey Shore for years, and we saw Sammy and Ronnie's toxic, and violent at times relationship. It was broadcasted as entertainment. Sammy was crying while he was aggressive toward her, but they came back season after season. Nobody pulled that show. The difference here, and let's just say it, it's who the aggressor was in the narrative and who we're supposed to root for. What has changed in Taylor's situation here is that the public now has a more complicated picture of what she was living in. This is what moved the needle for ABC, not a legal outcome. It's the narrative shift, and it's always been about the narrative. And there's a financial reality here too. ABC reportedly stood to lose about $30 million if the fully filmed season never aired. So they were never going to fully walk away unless the public made it impossible. And here, we as a public, we had our response, and that showed ABC, I believe, that it was okay to still have Taylor on TV, that she hasn't been canceled in the public eye. And now, and I think it's poignant to mention, here's a list of some NFL players who were arrested, are charged with domestic violence, and they continue to play in the NFL league. Ray Rice was caught on video knocking his fiancée unconscious in an elevator. Adrian Peterson was indicted on felony child abuse charges for using a switch on his 4-year-old son. Greg Hardy was convicted of assaulting and threatening to kill his girlfriend. Ezekiel Elliott, never criminally charged, but the NFL's own investigation found he was physically violent. Tyreek Hill pleaded guilty to domestic violence against his pregnant girlfriend before the draft. Ray McDonald was arrested for domestic violence against his pregnant fiancée. Brandon Marshall had 3 domestic violence arrests, never convicted. That's a very partial list. The NFL's own data shows that between 2012 and 2014 alone, 33 active players were arrested on charges involving domestic violence, battery, assault, or murder. These players are still being paid the big bucks. There was no massive cancellation. But it made me wonder, what do these players all have in common? I found one unifying characteristic trait. They were all male. So it seems that canceling a female is far easier. And ABC tried to do that. And now they seem like they want to go double back on it because they realize that this particular woman, Taylor Frankie Paul, is able to come back from the story. I need to know where you guys land on this one. I think it's pretty clear, my thoughts. All right. That is episode 34 of Exhibit A-List. We broke down the Blake and Baldoni settlement and why this motion that is still in play is what everyone is overlooking, and it's really important. We went deep into the JPMorgan documents, the settlement offer, and this case is one that I'm going to be watching and updating you on because it's quite fascinating. We talked about Kim Kardashian and why I'm still rooting for her. And we talked about Taylor Frankie Paul and how her season might still play. And I put the NFL on my own little indictment. If something in this episode made you think, share it. Screenshot yourself listening to this episode. Put it in your Instagram stories. Tag me, Jasmine Weg ESQ. I will absolutely share that. Please let me know what hit, what you want to hear about next. Follow me on Instagram, Jasmine Weg ESQ. Follow me on TikTok, Jazz the Lawyer. And you know where to find me on this podcast: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I will produce this on Courier Pigeon if that's what you want to hear it. Bye. Thank you for listening. See you on Monday. Court is dismissed. Stay curious, my friends.